Welcome to our today's discussion. I'm Abraham OMODING.
And my name is Ivana Waweru.
Today's discussion, we are discussing about critical thinking and decision making. And only about critical thinking and decision making, how you decide or how you make your decision may affect you positive or negative depending on how you attain your decision. First, who is Ivana Waweru?
So I'm a counseling psychologist. I work at Salama Center, which is based in Ruben Center. And we are all about youth and empowering youth to achieve the best mental health they can possibly achieve. And that's what we are always doing. So we do counseling, I do mental health talks, and I do wellness sessions. Yeah.
What's first decision making?
So decision making is the process whereby you look at different options you have and then come to a final conclusion, and that's what you call a decision. So the decision making process is where you decide which option to take. Yeah.
And what about the critical thinking?
Critical thinking is whereby you think about a situation, you analyze it, you evaluate it, and you look for a very, you reflect on the situation wholeheartedly, 100% in all dimensions.
You'll be sure for what you are saying.
What you're thinking about,
That's great. For everything, there is a step.
Yeah.
Do you think what are the steps before making a decision? Yeah, what are the steps?
So the first thing when you're making a decision, you should gather information. And then after that, you should be able to weigh the consequences of the options you have. And then at the end, you make a decision. And then when you make a decision, you should also take time and evaluate the decision after you've made the decision. So that you can see, was it what I expected? Were the consequences what I had looked forward to, or was it different? Even
at this time, let me say for our youth, maybe the outcomes when they fail to make a good decision or fail to think critically, what are the, let me say, the effects?
Yeah, so if you're a youth and you're not thinking critically or not having an effective decision-making process, you're bound to make mistakes. You're bound to do things that are not, what I would say, you don't do things that will develop your life. So you do things that are not constructive. And so that's when people end up in situations like teenage pregnancy, they end up in premarital sex, they end up in drug abuse because you're not thinking about your decisions and you're just letting life happen. Yeah.
And most of our youth, let me say, like making decisions, reaching at the final, let me say, conclusion. For our youth, most of them, let me say, is a problem. But at which situation, let me say, a good time to make decision?
Every stage in your life, you should be making a decision. Everything in life is a decision. Everything in life is a choice. And if you don't sit down and evaluate your life and think critically of what step you're going to make, then you're going to be in a problem. So I think every time a youth is faced with a situation where they have to do something, they should make a decision. Yeah.
What are the skills, let me say, making a decision? Do it need, let me say, skill for you to have or someone to have so that he or she may make a good decision? Yeah.
So I think one thing you need to have is observation. You need to be able to observe a situation and know, is this the situation, which situation is this I am in? What are the good things? What are the negative things? What do I need to know? Maybe gather information. It's also very healthy as a youth, because we don't know everything, to ask other people. If they are older than you or they are more experienced than you, go and ask. Don't do things out of the blue. And then the other thing also is learning how to analyze. And also the easiest thing I think I tell youth is, before you make a decision, look at the pros and the cons, which are the advantages and the disadvantages. When you look at those two, you'll be able to make a very effective decision. Yeah.
Let me say about when you're discussing about the decision making and critical thinking.
Yeah.
When it reached, let me say, for a decision making, where mainly the youth, maybe you're failed, you have a certain problem, the best point to tackle that decision, who can you maybe involve in making decisions?
It depends with the situation, for true, because one thing is, for example, you have a situation where you don't know what to do in your career. Maybe you're having a career issue. Your parents maybe are not good in business or career. You don't have to ask your parents. You go and look for someone who is in a career and you can see they have succeeded. So it's always good to look for someone who has more information on the issue you're making a decision on. So if you're making a decision on career, look for someone who's good in career. If you're making a spiritual decision, look for someone who has spiritual strength. If you're looking for someone who maybe advice on on a life issue or relationship, maybe look for a counselor, maybe look for someone who is a relationship coach, someone who understands that situation more than you. Yeah.
And what, maybe you've made a decision.
Yeah.
And then you realize that the decision that I've made, maybe these are the consequences. How can you, let me say, overcome it?
So one thing is, if you're always looking at the consequences of a decision, sometimes you may not foresee all the consequences. Sometimes you're unable to look at everything. So when it happens that umepata maybe some negative consequences and you hadn't thought about them, it's always good to go back to the drawing board and even look and see, is it okay for me to go back on my word and say, maybe I need to change my mind. We are human beings, we have feelings, we have thoughts, those change, our feelings change, our thoughts change. So if you feel like you need to go back on your decision and make a different decision, it is fine. The problem with youth is that we always say we are trying to please others or we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. The first person to hurt is yourself. So if you need to change a decision you've made, it's okay. As long as you're not hurting yourself and the people who are there, hauwaumizi directly, you know. Yeah.
Your decision will reflect to, let me say, either positive or negative, depending on how you tackle it. Even the people that you are involving in making the decision, finalizing.
Yeah.
Your last word, let me say, for our youth at this time, because most of them, let me say, they fail making decision, then they end up regretting.
In life, most youth wanasema, they always say nimejipata or I have found myself. I just found myself doing this. That's the wrong mentality. We all have decisions to make in our lives, no matter how young we are. And so we need to take charge of our lives, make decisions, gather information of everything we need to make a decision on. Think about the consequences. Ask yourself, are you ready for those consequences? And then make a decision that's great. And it's always good to evaluate your decision after you've made it. If you need to change your mind, it's okay. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for your time. Let's meet next time. I've been Abraham OMODING.
And I'm Ivana Waweru. Thank you for joining us.
Make a good decision. Start now. Don't wait tomorrow. Good time.
Bye-bye.